I'm an educator. That's my thing. I'm not a military person, so to speak. I'm not an economic person. I don't cross my lanes. And as Dr. Neely Fuller tells us in his book, Compensatory White Supremacy, he identifies 9 areas that are umbrella areas that any culture needs to be in control of. And I use the acronym REL, SEL, WEP, REL, SEL, WEP. REL, R is religion. The first E is economics, and the first L is labor. We have to get our ministers and our holy people together to create a viable spiritual system for our people. It doesn't make a difference what your religion is.
Viable.
Yes, it has to be something that can identify with the African spirit.
Right.
Not the religious African spirit, the spiritual system. In economics, we need to develop our own. We need to get peoples such as Dr. George Fraser, such as Dr. Claude Anderson, and all the other economists that really know how to put this together. Get them together to create some type of system. We need a ministry. As Minister Louis Farrakhan talks about, I remember in one of his Savior Days presentation, he talked about creating ministries. We need a ministry of spiritualism. We need a ministry of economics. We need a ministry of labor relations. We need to hire our own. And the SEL is, the S stands for sex, but I look at it more like gender. We as black men must take on the responsibility. As the Honorable Elijah Muhammad told Malcolm, in terms of a nation, when you're building a nation, we're all talking about nation building, but the reality is that a nation is only as strong as its weakest family. And we have got to create nations. We have to create relationships between the African man and the African woman that creates a viable nation. And we have to look at the balance, like we were talking earlier about Ma'at and Tehuti.
Right.
We were talking about Nun and Nunet, Ha-Ha-Het, Ka-Ka-Ket. For everything that there is a God. In Africa there is a goddess. You cannot have a God and not have a goddess. I have cognitive dissonance when we start dealing with having a male God only. I don't know how to deal with it.
Balance.
It must be balanced.
Everything's polarity.
Absolutely. And if our Creator has created us in His image, it must also be her image in balance. And we have to look at law. We have to bring our great lawyers together to create a ministry of law. And the WEP, W-E-P, stands for war. We need to get our military arm together. A real military arm that knows how to defend its people. And don't become into these little groups that fight amongst themselves while we're being attacked as a community.
Yeah, and that's pretty deep. And that goes into the question I want to ask you now about how do you feel that hip hop plays a part in the violence that's taking place with black on black crime?
The other E was entertainment. So we need a ministry of entertainment.
Entertainment.
You know, and those segments that I've seen Damon Dash talking, dropping. The most important thing that he said, of the many things that he said that was great, is he said, we didn't need them. And what he said is that they have created an illusion to make us think that we need them, that we need their approval, that we need their validation. We don't. We did this before they even existed. We did this before they depigmented themselves out of us. Why do we feel we need their approval for what we need to do as a community? As it relates to what's going on, I go back to the early days of the hip-hop in New York City, in the Bronx. I remember that. I remember what was happening in the music, because we have to look at what was happening as it relates to Sam Cooke. See, we need to know our history. Like I tell my son who likes to spit and do rap, you need to know history. You need to listen to the classics. You need to listen to the doo-wop. You need to listen to the jazz to understand what it was. It's all connected. Hip-hop came out of doo-wop. The brothers that used to get the T-Bird and sit up underneath the lamp at night and harmonize. That's where hip-hop came out of. The doo-wop sound, the harmony that we made as people. That created the Motown sound. That created Watt Stack's music. That brought the Isaac Hayes and all of the different musicians together.
And that jazz sound, like Bird.
That's it.
All those greats.
Yes.
James Brown.
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely. And that sound came out of earlier music, that deals with bebop. Bebop came out of rhythm and blues. Rhythm and blues came out of blues. Blues came out of the spiritual sung on the plantations. And the spiritual on the plantations was what we brought here when we were enslaved against our will. But they saw what we were doing back then. They saw the African Bombadas. They saw the Gil Scott Herons. They saw Sam Cooke, who was the first brother, African American, to own his own record label. Pretty soon we found him dead, shot 30 times, and we still don't understand how that brother died. His first recording artist on his label was Muhammad Ali, who did a whole album of poetry, rap, and it was called The Greatest.
Wow, I never knew that.
Yes, man, check the history.
What year was that?
You're dealing with like the early 60s. He had his own record label, and Muhammad Ali was the first person on his record label, Sam Cooke.
Because I know him and Sam Cooke were tight. He always
He
always did a shout out to Sam Cooke.
Absolutely.
After his fights.
Absolutely. And in his first fight, Sam Cooke and Malcolm X were together with him. That's another story that's not told. Sam Cooke was impacted by Malcolm because Malcolm was in Muhammad Ali's camp at this time. If you remember when he had left the nation for that little bit of time, he and his wife went down and stayed with Muhammad Ali down in his training camp. Sam Cooke was down there too. This is a history that is not talked about, that you can understand why all of these things that are going on. I have nothing but respect for our young people and what they're doing. My thing is, we as adults did not stand strong and on our square to bring our young people through this process. I know I was the young person that had to fend for himself on the streets of New York. I know what happened. We should have stayed, and this is why I try to, with our young people, I say, look, I ain't mad at you. No matter what I hear, I know that you are moving through a process because they are attempting to destroy the community. So they're using you. They are buying you out. But we as adults got to buy them back. I'm ready to compete with anybody for our young people's minds. And what we have to do is change the paradigm of how we're interacting with them. Deal with them from a heartfelt place so that they can understand. You see, because whether you realize it or not, it's you they're shooting in the streets. You young brothers, they're the ones that are being shot. And so with this entertainment and with this music, maybe I don't like what I hear. Maybe I don't like some of the words that I hear. Maybe I don't like the direction. But I think they're doing a pretty good job considering that we as men, the adult men, did not cover them when we should have covered them, and protected them when we should have protected them, and brought them under. So when we see an artist acting in a most inappropriate way, well, where is the father in this? Where is that male mentor that can be there? Back in the Motown days, you had people that didn't let you go out after 12 o'clock. They didn't let you go to parties.
Right.
They were not yesing you. They would tell, no, you have a show tomorrow. You know, the Motown sound. You better go to bed.
Right. Right.
So I'm concerned, but I know that's going to turn around because that can only have but so much life.
I kind of feel like it's no value. People are not valuing life. How do you turn that around and teach our young people to value life? How do we teach them to value life? And not just young people, just people in general.
I think because you see, what you're speaking of is worldwide.
Right.
There's no respect for life anywhere.
Anywhere, right.
As Bob Marley said, war. War in the East, war in the West, war in the North. Look around the world, everybody's at war. And guess what? They are over war. All about religion. Everybody fighting over God. And if God, the very creator of life, is at war, what are we telling our children?
Right.
We're telling them, talk it out. They ain't talking it out in Iraq. They ain't talking it out in Afghanistan. They're not talking it out in the Middle East. They're not talking out anywhere. So why are we telling our young people to talk it out? We told the South Africans in Azania, constructive engagement. They didn't do no constructive engagement in Vietnam. They didn't do no constructive engagement in Haiti.
Right.
So now all of a sudden you want to talk things out because you don't want the people to come after you. And so what we have to do is we have to demonstrate the value of life by living life, by enjoying life, and by letting them know how sacred it is. We have to start very young. We have to start in our preschools now and in our kindergartens. And we have to include all of our people in this process. I'd like to think that we can help everybody, but the bottom line is, I got good news and bad news. Dr. King was right. We are going to get to to the promised land. The bad news is, a lot of us ain't gonna make it.
Right.
Because if your mind is in a place where it doesn't be, blessings on you, but we need strong people now. We need spiritual warriors, physical, people who can think this out and develop a process by which we can get to the point. But to our young people, man, I got nothing but love and respect for them. And I would hope that in our conversations with them, before we would put down what they do, let's give them something that can pick themselves up.
Right.